My panel, this is for Maria Cardona. Before Steve Bannon went to work for Donald Trump, he interviewed Trump for Breitbart Radio, and in one conversation, Donald Trump defended the idea that we should give priority to highly educated immigrants.
You know, we have to keep our talented people in this country. I think you agree with that. Do you agree with that?
Well, I got a tougher, when 2/3 or 3/4 of the CEOs in Silicon Valley are from South Asia or from Asia, I think. On my point is that a country's more like Sessions. A country's more than an economy. We're a civic society.
Okay, so by the way, that number doesn't really check out because Bannon seriously exaggerated the number of Asian executives. So what do you think when you hear that exchange?
Well, I think exactly what the criticism has been of Steve Bannon all along, which is he delves into this language that can be communicated to all of these communities of color as nothing but bigoted and racist. And that's why you have so many people who are out on the streets, so many people who are afraid of their own future and the future of their communities when you have somebody like Steve Bannon who has normalized this kind of bigotry and hatred and racism and misogyny being in the White House. That literally means misogyny now has a seat at the table at the White House. Racism has the ear of the president. And you have seen Donald Trump already taking that kind of advice from the very first day that he announced his campaign, calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals.
John, you disagree with that?
I do. I mean, Steve Bannon is brilliant. He's the Karl Rove of this generation. He and Kellyanne Conway won the election because they're plugged in with the American people. And Don, who can justify right now that we're going to have open borders of this business of breaking up families? No, the entire family should return to their country of origin. And it's not asking too much that American citizens start to rebuild this nation. But these attacks on Steve Bannon are totally unfair. President-elect Trump has the right to select the type of people that are going to be around him. And as far as Tara, all this outrage about him, what about the late 90s with President Clinton? I didn't hear people saying it was okay that the president was greenlighting that type of activity in the Oval Office. Suddenly, they're going after Bannon and Trump on this.
I want Tara. Don't come at me with that, because I've been one of the people who's come out and said for all of my fellow conservatives that went after Bill Clinton justifiably for his behavior in the White House and what he did, to turn around and then make excuses for Donald Trump's behavior and his comments about grabbing women by the genitals and all that. All of a sudden, they excuse that away, are hypocrites. So don't come at me and say that I didn't have anything to say about that. I was very active on the front lines of conservatism all the 90s. Now, as far as what's going on, I want to know why we're interchangeable tonight.
Tara,
we're interchangeable. Tara is Angela. Angela's Tara. I have a question for John.
Hold on, Angela. Before you go to your question, I want to ask Tara, because Tara is a conservative Republican, and the topic was Steve Bannon. How do you feel about that?
Right.
No, I think that putting Steve Bannon in that position, you can be smart, you can be a genius, and you can be an evil genius. I don't think that having someone with the background that he has and the comments that he's made, bragging about Breitbart being the platform for the alt-right, bragging about Leninism and his affinity for that, bragging about bringing down the system, and allowing some of the ilk that's been on that website under his leadership, that does not send a message of unity that Donald Trump needs to put forth as now next president of the United States in our country that's so divided. It's inflammatory language, and we would, as conservatives, would never stand for it. I use the example of how we went after Van Jones, Cass Sunstein, Anita Dunn for her affinity for Mao, and Cass Sunstein and his, leftist views, and then Van Jones, who I've come to know well and who I think is a very nice guy and a great commentator, but he was excoriated when he was appointed the Green Job Czar for his leftist views, but nowhere close to what
conservatives doing that with Bannon then?
Because I think that people, the moral compass of my party has gone haywire, and that they've normalized and rationalized things that we would never accept on the other side. I can't explain why they're doing this, but it's not a good message, and they need to stop it.
Can you imagine if President Obama had appointed or brought into the White House Reverend Jeremiah Wright when he became president? That is the exact analogy. That is the exact analogy.
Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
So my question is simple. You talked about needing to rebuild this country. I think it's important to note how this country was started to begin with. I'm just interested to know who you think to begin with, John.
Well, right now, I mean, my family came from Italy, and they didn't go and cost $19,000 per pupil in the schools. They didn't clog hospital emergency rooms. As far as paying taxes, well, the fact of the matter is, you can't just say who built the country. Right now, illegal immigration is a huge cost
But
to
I'm asking
cities,
you who built the country
states,
because they were forced immigrants.
I think what her point is that immigrants built the country, and
Settlers
at some point, all of the people who came over were illegal at some point.
You know what is so ironic, John?
Well, that's not true. In my family, they were barbers. They didn't get free EBT cards. They didn't get welfare, and they weren't cost $19,000 per pupil. And they learned how to speak English.
Your president-elect has paid zero in federal taxes for at least the last 20 years. Undocumented immigrants pay thousands and thousands of more dollars in federal taxes than your president-elect.
They do not pay taxes.
Yes, they do.
You
have to read a book and article or something.
Saying that they don't underscores just how little you know about this issue.
I do know a lot about it.
You don't know anything about it.
People need to get. People need. How do they? They don't file state tax returns. They don't file federal tax returns.
Yes, that's right.
You just said a minute ago they were hiding in the shadows. How can they be hiding in the shadows and paying taxes? You can't have it both ways. Hiding in the shadows and marching in the streets of Los Angeles.
I think you're outnumbered.
What shadows?
Not only is he outnumbered,
it doesn't mean I'm wrong, though, Don Lemon. Marching, hiding in the shadows. They're in the schools of New York and L.A.
You probably should study up a little bit on it, but I appreciate you coming on.
Read a book.
Thank you all.
John.
Thank you guys.
Read a book.
That's it for us.
Yes, read several.
Thanks for watching.
Hasta mañana, John.